miles above beautiful Monterey Bay, Laguna Seca Raceway is the site of what could be a $1 million day for Alex Zanardi. But first, he'll have to conquer the many challenges of Laguna, including the scene of last year's pass of the lead, the corkscrew. You're on the grid. We have bright sun, cloudless skies, and warm temperatures for the 16th round of the PPG Kart World Series for 1997. You are on the grid for the featured event of the Toyota Grand Prix of Monterey weekend, the Texaco 300. Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Varsha. After last weekend's events in Vancouver, in which Alex Zanardi was fined and put on probation for a collision with race leader Bryan Herta, I suppose it's appropriate that they are the featured performers in this edition of On the Grid, as we are about 30 minutes away from the start of today's race, and it should be a great one. Our stories begin with the penalty suffered by Zanardi for colliding with race leader Herta and taking him out while Zanardi was attempting to make up a lap a week ago in Vancouver. We'll also be talking about the rivalry that has resulted between Herta and Alex Zanardi that reached a new level in qualifying for today's race. And of course, the pass of the year last year, Zanardi going around Bryan Herta to take victory. Let's get started now, beginning with Alex Zanardi and team reaction to the penalties. Here's Gary Gerald.
Bob, it was an interesting scenario last week. The tremendous comeback drive by Zanardi, not once but twice, coming back up through the field, kind of bullying his way, and in the eyes of many, bulldozing his way. Consequently, after the race, kart officials came down hard. A $25,000 fine. Now, that's one of the largest we can ever remember in kart history, and a 2-race probation, meaning today and 3 weeks from today in Fontana. The kart officials don't want to talk any further about the situation, but I think clearly they have delivered a message to the group of drivers, the 28 who are about to compete here today. Remember, however, the last time there were probations handed out, Michael Andretti got a probation. What did he do? Well, he came back and he won 2 races promptly. Paul Tracy got a probation. He came back. He won 2 races very promptly. What will that do to the mindset today of Alex Zanardi? Well, we're going to be talking to him a little bit later on in our third segment. We'll find out what approach he takes to this race. Jan?
Well, Gary, this show is called On the Grid. The place you want to be on the grid, of course, is pole position. That's where Bryan Herta is going to start from. Now, we always talk about Alex Zanardi and his great qualifying runs. Well, think about this. Bryan Herta is on pole by almost a half of a second. He just smoked Alex Zanardi here to get the pole position. And also, he is on Goodyear tires. The highest Goodyear runner behind Bryan Herta is Gilles de Ferran, way back in 9th place. So, with the Firestone seeming to be faster, but a Goodyear on pole position, one only wonders, what on earth could Bryan Herta have done if he had Firestone tires? Danny?
We have a new rule in IndyCar racing. I call it the Alex Zanardi rule. Well, remember last year he made a pass on Bryan Herta, went off the track, down, passed, and got in front of him. Now they have a rule that if you take all 4 wheels off of the track and you gain a position, you have to drop back into the position you were before you pass that car, or you get black flagged if you don't. This is a very good rule because the racing is supposed to take place on the track. Bob?
All right, thanks, Danny. The Zanardi rule surely will play some role in the outcome of today's race. Now, despite Zanardi's success on behalf of Italy, the battle for the Nations Cup in the PPG Kart World Series is between the United States and Brazil. Zanardi's success, however, has brought him this 37-point lead over Gilles de Ferran for the PPG Cup and the $1 million bonus that goes with it. They are the only 2 men with a shot at that title. De Ferran has a big job ahead of him today. If Alex Zanardi finishes 7th or better, he clinches no matter what Gilles de Ferran does. On de Ferran's part, he must finish 2nd or preferably win, with Zanardi finishing 8th or worse to keep the championship alive to the final race of the year on the California Speedway. We'll be back to Laguna Seca in just a moment. Laguna Seca Raceway in preparation for the start of the Texaco Haviland 300. I'm Bob Varsha, glad to have you with us on an absolutely beautiful day. At the beginning of this race, all eyes are going to be on Alex Zanardi and his front row teammate, the pole sitter Bryan Herta. This week, Alex Zanardi had something interesting to say about the pass last year when he went around Bryan Herta. Said, Alex, I thought what I did was something that had to be tried, not because it was dangerous or a thrill, but the risk in such a maneuver is if you fail, all the blame is on you. I considered that and was prepared to take that if my race had ended against the wall. And as kart officials have now made abundantly clear, the same applies if the man you're trying to pass winds up with his race ended in the wall, as happened at Vancouver last week. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Paul Tracy exchanging greetings here with Mauricio Gugelmin. Big Mo, the most recent winner on the streets at Vancouver here just a week or so ago. I'm interested in this whole probation situation. I know everybody's talking about it. You've been in that situation, and you've also had encounters with Zanardi this year, I think, down in Australia. Do you think that this is a just action that's been taken against him?
Well, I think it's fair. I think, you know, for myself, I wish I could get away with some of the stuff that he's pulled. I know that if that was me at Vancouver, I'd probably be sitting out the last couple of races. But, you know, he's in a different situation than I was in. For me, it was early in the season, and, you know, it was still a lot of time, so you could afford a mistake. He's got to try to wrap up a championship. There's a lot of pressure, so he's, you know, one mistake and can really cost him a lot.
Did you feel a lot of pressure when you were in a probationary situation? Because you came right back and won a couple of races.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really feel a lot of pressure, and we were going into the oval, so I had a lot of confidence going into the oval. So it really didn't affect me at all because I knew that our car was going to work well, and I wasn't going to struggle on the oval. So for me, it was a different situation. I think for Alex, there's definitely a lot of pressure to perform and not make any mistakes.
Okay, Paul starts in the 12th spot today, and the car's been working pretty good. We wish him well.
Thank you.
Jan Bikus?
Well, of course, we've talked about Brian Herta. He is the man that starts on the pole. A fantastic lap in qualifying for you. But I've got to take you back. I know everyone's been asking you about Vancouver. Have you been able to put that out of your mind, except for the guys like us always asking you those questions?
No, it's just the guys like you, Jan. I got plenty to worry about. Right, Paul?
Well, that was Paul Tracy giving him a bear hug while we were off camera there. Tell us about today, specifically, starting on pole with a huge advantage, but you're the only guy on Goodyear's that's up front.
Yeah, I know. You know, obviously the Goodyear tire's working very well for me with my car, and you know, just hopefully over the long run we're going to have something that's going to be able to compete and beat the Firestones.
Now, what about the longevity of the tire? We've seen it pretty good in qualifying in the past, but then sometimes, like in Vancouver, it starts to go off. Is that a concern?
Well, it's always a concern, but I have to say I think this weekend we're in as good a position as we've been in for at least half a season in terms of tire reliability and consistency.
All right, well, he starts up front. I know we're all looking forward to that first turn. Danny?
Thanks, Greg Moore. 2 wins this year, youngest guy ever. You were in the hunt of the championship, and it kind of went away a little bit on you. What, are you disappointed with that?
A little bit disappointed, you know, but we still have a chance for the top 3, which is what my goal was this year, you know, but we did get our first 2 wins, which is the most important thing.
Now, we've been talking a lot about Alex Zanardi and his aggressive driving. Of course, you fell afoul of that at Toronto. We're kind of watching that right now. You saw that scene. You had a pretty big blow. What do you feel about his driving style?
I think that he, you know, obviously Alex is a very fast guy. I think sometimes he kind of lets things go a little too aggressive, but I guess that's part of racing. You know, he's done a pretty good job so far this year, but, you know, what goes around comes around. That's what I remember.
So if you see him today in your rearview mirror or in front of you, any plans?
He's not going to have an easy race, that's for sure.
Good car today. You're looking forward to the race?
I think we've got a very good car. We were second this morning in the morning warm-up, so I think we got a real good shot at winning this race here in Laguna.
Well, listen, I know they're getting ready to introduce you over here, so you better take off. Good luck to you today.
Thanks a lot.
Bob?
All right, thank you, Danny. Greg Moore is on his way to be introduced to a huge crowd here at Laguna Seca. Let me take you back to the Nations Cup. A 3-up tonight on ESPN this week here at Laguna Seca. Appropriately enough, Target Ganassi Racing, the dominant team in the series the last 2 years, co-owned by Chip Ganassi and NFL Hall of Famer Joe Montana. Mike Hull, the team manager. Jimmy Vasser, the reigning series champion. Alex Zanardi, the champion-elect, I guess you might say. Chief mechanics Grant Weaver and Rob Hill. Race engineers Julian Robertson and Mo Nunn. Lots of experience in this team. And it's shown this year, not a great year for Jimmy Vasser, who still has time to win his first race of the season. Alex Zanardi may drive all the way to the championship today, and if they can do it, they'd be the first team to win back-to-back PPG Cups with 2 different drivers since 1982 and 83, when Penske Racing did it with Rick Mears and Al Unser Sr. Now, while the food is cooking, we're not going to get time for lunch. We got to go racing today. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Alex Zanardi, everybody is talking about you for a week here now, and I'm curious about how you're going to approach this race in view of the penalties that we've talked about. Does it change your approach whatsoever to this race?
No, I'm just going to go and do my race. That's over. There is nothing older than yesterday news, as I said yesterday, and I really believe that. We'll try to have a good race today, and if everything goes according to plan, I'll have a lot more to enjoy tonight.
You got your mom here today. She's in the pits, and a cousin here from Italy. A rare chance for them to watch you. That's got to be a nice feeling to know you got a little family support.
It's some more pressure. No, it's nice to have one mom. I mean, at the end of the day, since before Brazil, I haven't been back to home, and it's been, you know, it's a wonderful life what I do, and what I'm going through is amazing. This is probably one of the best periods of my life, but it takes a lot of sacrifice. I haven't seen my friends and my family, so can you imagine how much I'm looking forward to go home tonight?
I can bet. And the possibility of taking $1 million along with him. Wish you well.
You got that right.
Jan?
Well, his teammate Jimmy Vasser has just been introduced. We got to walk with you up on the podium. That was kind of fun. Tell me, in Vancouver, we understood that you've kind of gone back to last year's setup somewhat, and you feel happier with that?
Well, yeah, I like to do well. We've been struggling a bit in the mid part of the season, and so technically we just changed what we've been doing, and it seems to be coming around. It's not perfect this weekend, but at least I think we're in the hunt. We made a few changes for the race. Got our fingers crossed.
Do you still consider this a home track? I know you don't live here any longer, but you spent so much time here. Does this feel like home?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a lot of friends and family that come out here, and I grew up just up the road. And although I don't spend all the time here anymore, it's anytime you come back home, you can feel it.
Of course, the owner of his car is Chip Ganassi. He's with Danny Sullivan.
Thanks, John, and I'm here with the guy that's put all this together. Now, you're poised for your second championship in a row. It's hard enough to win one, but imagine put together two. How have you managed to do all this, Chip?
Well, Danny, you know, there's not a lot of magic to the racing business. I mean, everybody knows it takes a lot of effort on people's parts. It starts with having good partners. I mean, I'm fortunate the blue chip companies we're involved with, from Minnesota to New York to LA to the middle parts of the country. We just have beautiful, you know, target vendor partners are super to us, and it starts with there. It starts right there, believe me.
Now, Chip, you were a driver, and a few years ago, I have actually raced against you myself. I remember standing on a podium with you. Are you more nervous as an owner than you were as a driver?
That's an interesting question. It's a different kind of nervous. I'd like to tell you that it's better or worse, but you know, that was 10 or more years ago, so it's been a while since I've been in a car. It's a little bit nervous. I can tell you that I do get nervous, but maybe, you know, it's a little less when you're not out there risking your life every corner.
Now, Gary's down with a guy that really actually runs this thing a lot for you, does the day-to-day operation, Tom Anderson. Gary?
Let's talk to Tom here. Tom, you face an unusual prospect here. Back-to-back championships, same teams, different drivers. That is really rare. It's been like 15 years since I think the Penske team did that. Would that be the biggest accomplishment in your long racing career if you can pull this off?
Oh, absolutely. It's truly a once-in-a-lifetime deal to be able to be with the Target team as strong as it is right now and have the momentum basically move around in the shop rather than moving down the street to another competitor. You know, Gary, the biggest problem you have as a manager of a two-car team is you always bring home one loser. But it's a good problem to have when the other guy's winning, and one side helps keep the other together. And the big thing that Chip's done is the guy's off a one-car share on the other, so everybody works together in-house. So even though there's some long faces once in a while, the team as a whole, all 60 people, really pull hard together.
And Tom Anderson's done a masterful job. Thanks.
Thank you, Gary.
Jan?
Well, so has Morris Nunn. He is the engineer for Alex Zanardi, and you got paid a huge compliment by the track announcer here, Bruce Flanders. He said, well, if I was driving a car that Morris Nunn engineered, I could probably qualify in the top 10. How much is you? How much is Alex?
Oh dear, that's very difficult. Well, obviously all the drivers that get up the front need a good car. I think that's, you can see that with Penske's at the moment. Their drivers are behind, and maybe 60-40. I mean, Alex helps me as much as I help him. And with his feedback, he is very good. He always drives the car next to the limit, so I always know how good the car is. And we work very well together and achieve it together, so maybe 60-40.
Okay, well, he didn't tell us which part was the 60, but I think it's Alex Zanardi. Bob?
All right, thanks very much, guys. We've still got plenty to come here on the grid for the Texaco 300. The Manufacturers' Championship is led at the moment by Mercedes. That could be decided. We've got a little more time to go before we light the fires and go racing at the Texaco Haviland 300. We'll be back with more on the grid from Laguna in just a moment.
Aggression and over-aggression.
A year ago, Alex Zanardi's pass on Brian Herta won the race at Laguna Seca, earning Zanardi praise as aggressive. A week ago in Vancouver, Zanardi's attempt to pass Herta left Herta in the wall, and Zanardi was punished as over-aggressive.
I'm obviously pissed off because I was leading the race, and he turfed me out of the lead, and we weren't even racing. I wasn't racing him.
I think as long as you know what you're doing, that's what you're supposed to do. That's what you're paid to do.
This was the scene at 6:28 a.m. as the fans filed into the hills above Monterey Bay, making their way to Laguna Seca Raceway. Those who had the foresight to camp out overnight could just roll out of bed, warm their hands by the fire, get breakfast ready, and wait for the dawn. This is the scene right now at Laguna Seca as we are just minutes from the start of the pivotal race of the 1997 PPG Kart World Series. Welcome to the Toyota Grand Prix of Monterey featuring the Texaco 300K. Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Varsha. Alex Zanardi has a lot to think about right now. First of all, the championship. 7th place or better today, and he clinches the PPG Cup and a $1 million bonus. But that's just one of the things Alex has to be thinking about. Take, for example, qualifying. On Friday, Zanardi was the provisional pole sitter. On Saturday, Brian Herta, his arch rival, swept that pole position away. Herta and Zanardi, just a week after their collision at Vancouver, will start on the front row for today's race. Herta has nothing to lose by being aggressive in the first few turns. Zanardi has plenty to lose. And then there are the sanctions that Zanardi was slapped with following the events in Vancouver. A $25,000 fine and probation for the last 2 races of the season. With more on that, here's Gary Gerald.
With Chip Ganassi as they await the start of this race. Are those sanctions just in your mind, and will it impact the performance of your driver today, Chip, as he tries to wrap up a championship?
I don't think so, Gary. We're focused on the championship. You know, Alex has shown he can win at the road races, he can win on the streets, he can win on the ovals. Today we're going to see if he's worthy of being a champion, and that's the kind of drive you're going to see from him.
A little more pressure, $1 million on the line. Jan Beekes?
Well, of course, there's a lot on line for the first corner as well. The scene is set. Brian Herta on the left. We've got Alex Zanardi on the right. Now, we asked him, will that probation make any difference in your driving? He says, absolutely not. I will do whatever it takes to pass Brian Herta if it's necessary. The key is, will it be necessary in the first turn, or will he wait till later in the race? Danny?
Alex Zanardi's problems don't end with Brian Herta. Over the course of the season, he has ruffled more than a few feathers with his aggressive driving style. And drivers are like elephants. They never forget. Let's take Paul Tracy battling for the lead in Australia. Gets tangled up with Alex Zanardi, puts him out of the race. Alex Zanardi gets back on the track and goes on to finish well. Then in Canada, Greg Moore, who is on the track, gets tangled up with Alex Zanardi, who's coming out of the pits, puts him into the wall. Quite a serious accident, damaged the car heavily. Alex Zanardi is going to have to watch himself if he's going to clinch that championship with all these drivers today.
Well, as you see, the cars are now on the track, warming tires and engines, and here's the way they'll start. Brian Herta looking to avenge last year's loss from his 3rd career pole, and Alex Zanardi, last year's race winner, who can clinch the title today. On row 2, Scott Pruitt, 3rd here last year, and Mark Blundell. Row 3, Mauricio Gugelmin, whose first win came last week at Vancouver, and Jimmy Vasser, who was 2nd last week. Row 4 will be Greg Moore and Michel Dorjain Jr. in his best starting position ever. Row 5, Gilles de Ferran looking to stay alive in the title. He won here 2 years ago. Andre Ribeiro is next to him. Row 6 will be Christian Fittipaldi and Paul Tracy. On row 7, Dario Franchitti, quickest of the rookie qualifiers, and Michael Andretti. On row 8, Raul Boisel and Bobby Rahal, who won 4 in a row here from 84 to 87. Row 9 will be Parker Johnstone and Walter Salas. Row 10, Max Pappas and Al Unser Jr. On row 11, Richie Hearn starts alongside Juan Fangio II. On row 12, P.J. Jones and Adrian Fernandez. On row 13, Hiro Matsushita and Roberto Moreno, again subbing for the injured Patrick Carpentier. And on row 14, Charles Nierberg and Dennis Vitolo. Now, here's some of the stories we'll be following today. Of course, the championship is a big part of it. The front row battle. It doesn't get any better than this. Herta and Zanardi. The tire war, Goodyear and Firestone. Firestone has won the day in qualifying. Can they win the race? And of course, today could be Alex Zanardi's $1 million day. Here's what it will take. Alex Zanardi, if he finishes 7th or better, will clinch the PPG Cup and $1 million bonus. Gilles de Ferran, starting back in 9th place, needs to finish 2nd or better, with Zanardi finishing 8th or worse to keep the championship alive to the final race of the season at the California Speedway 3 weeks from today. Quickly now to Gary Gerald.
Yeah, the irony of those two guys, Herta and Zanardi, starting in the front row for this event with so much at stake, is not lost on the guys who start right behind them. That's Scott Pruitt and Mark Blundell. They have talked about how they're going to approach the start. Both of them are going to be very conservative. They think they'll lay back. They want to watch and see if anything happens between Herta and Zanardi. Then maybe they've got an extra second to take evasive action if necessary. Everybody's thinking about this deal.
There is flagman Jim Swintal. Now, he is wearing a microphone, and if you were with us for our coverage of the Mid-Ohio race earlier this year, you know that he likes to talk the field down to the green flag. Talking to himself, really, as he awaits the lineup that he wants before he will flag this race away. It is the most important start of the 1997 season, no doubt about it. The field now coming up the hill, led along the way by the newest addition to the PPG pace car fleet. Some of the world's top automobiles wearing the colors of PPG's automotive finishes. This is the new LX GS 400, perhaps the most advanced new car on the road today. Wearing beautiful blue paint schemes, a two-tone blue paint scheme. It is billed as what will be the fastest road sedan available. Riding with Michael Andretti down through the corkscrew. The elevator is going down 160 feet from the top of the corkscrew down to turn 11. And we're going to turn over the start to flagman Jim Swintal. Saw Jim Swintal's mouth working as he talked to the cars. He evidently liked the start. We are green. Brian Herta takes the lead. Scott Pruitt back in third, backing out slightly to see what happens in front of him. 2 and 3 wide down in the edge. Ready hairpin.
Sees those puffs of dust. Big Mo was out in the dust in the first turn. Just people putting wheels out there trying to find a little elbow room.
Up to full song now. Herta and Zanardi with 83 laps of racing ahead of them. Brian Herta out front. So many times he has been to the brink of his first career victory. At Mid-Ohio, a tire exploded. Who was there to take over the lead? This man, Alex Zanardi, who went on to the victory. And then, of course, Vancouver 1 week ago. Herta leading. Zanardi trying to unlap himself, contact, and the race leader into the wall. You know that story. There is Scott Pruitt getting sideways slightly under acceleration.
He really got sideways coming out of the corner. Tricky place, very fast.
Jimmy Vasser right there in the second target. Ganassi Racing Machine, the reigning champion. That reign could come to an end today at the hands of his teammate. And Vasser, to his credit, has been very gracious about the great season that Alex Zanardi has had. There's Mark Blundell. Twice a winner this year. That is Blundell, not Gugelmin.
I'm not so sure the Zanardi move at the start wasn't a planned start. Lay back just a little bit. Don't get down there where you can have a chance of Brian and yourself getting tangled up and take you out of the championship hunt. Get back there in second spot. Hang on and see what happens.
Smoke from the back of Hiro Matsushita's Toyota-powered Reynard. This on lap 2. Word from the officials is Hiro Matsushita will be black flagged. Officials want to have a look at the source of that smoke. At the top of the corkscrew, the race leader Brian Herta, chased by the bright red target machine of Alex Zanardi. Then Pruitt, Vasser, Blundell, Gugelmin, Gilles de Ferran up to 7th now from his 9th place starting position. Michel Jourdain Jr. remains in 8th. Paul Tracy is 9th, and Michael Andretti rounds out the top 10. Through turn 11 and onto the start-finish straightaway, slightly uphill. Then plunging downhill through turn 1 to this turn 2, a double apex left-hander known as the Andretti hairpin. You can see the sandy shoulders of the racetrack. When the wind comes up, that dust gets on the track. Makes it very difficult to prevent wheel spin.
Bob, there was an indication that there may have been a problem with Dario Franchitti's car. Great concern among Carl Hogan and the team, but then apparently the officials clarified there'd been a miscall on the number. It wasn't Franchitti's car. It was Hiro Matsushita experiencing a problem.
Franchitti runs in the 14th spot, trying to make up ground on Rookie of the Year points leader Patrick Carpentier, who was out with a broken left collarbone. Brian Herta leads the way over Alex Zanardi with 81 laps remaining. Stay with us. Parker Johnstone off the track here at Laguna Seca as the Texaco Havoline 300 unfolds. Early laps. Johnstone at the uphill section looks like turn 5. Now, much like our race at Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin earlier this year, if you get up there into the gravel traps, your race might well be over.
Right, Wally Dallenbach is going to decide whether he can put you back in the race comfortably. He might pull you out there, or he might call you. It looks like they're going to push him, bump start him. Those tires are in trouble, but if they can get him bump started, they'll probably let him go back in the race.
Wally Dallenbach, the chief steward for the series, been a busy man the last week or so. You ride with Michael Andretti now. Andretti shown in 10th place, having given up 1 position to that car ahead. Paul Tracy getting his uniform dirty, so to speak, for the first time in a long time. This is the first time in 4 races, that is, that Tracy has been able to complete lap 1. That after a string earlier this year in which he won 3 races in a row, led the championship for 7 races before his turn of bad luck began.
To update you on Parker Johnstone, the team has just informed me that the reason he went off the track, he radioed in and said he was hit from behind. He does not know what the other car was or who it was, but he was hit from behind. That's why he found himself off in the dirt.
Thank you, Jan. There's been more action in the pits. Hiro Matsushita, who was brought in under a black flag for smoke, turns out to have a terminal oil leak. The upper left of your screen, you see the gaps in time from a given car to the race leader. And now the gap closes between Paul Tracy, Michael Andretti, Greg Moore, Christian Fittipaldi, all running for position. Andre Ribeiro right there as well. Some of that white curbing you see is new here at Laguna Seca, and as racers often will, they're using every inch of the track and the curbing to get maximum corner speed. Here comes the corkscrew.
Michael taking a look down the inside, was hoping that Paul would leave that door open a little bit.
Remember, under a new rule this weekend, if you put 4 wheels off the racetrack, you cannot improve your position. If you do, it'll mean a black flag. Slowest turn on the racetrack, about 45 miles an hour for these cars. Back on point, Brian Herta, leading a race for the 5th time this year, the 4th in a row. Herta has really come on strong late in the season.
And Alex Zanardi is right in there with him. He's closing up that gap. Look, he's a car length behind him. He's going to try to put some pressure on him and hope that Brian will make a mistake and he can take advantage of it.
Oh, approaching the corkscrew. Memories of last year flood the mind.
Yeah, look at Brian's line though, right down the inside. Doesn't hurt him through the corkscrew, but he is not going to leave that door open for Zanardi. He's not going to give him a take 2 at that position.
This is turn 10, slightly banked. You can stay on it. And then a quick run up to turn 11. Lots of new safety improvements to Laguna Seca Raceway, all very much appreciated by the drivers. More runoff, more tire walls, and those little bits of curb that we mentioned earlier. Two pit stops expected. The pit window will open around lap 27, we anticipate.
Bob, this appears to me to be a lot more of a ploy and a plan by target Chip Ganassi. Is let it get a good clean start, stay out of Brian's way, let it settle down, let the race settle down, and then put some pressure on him. The Firestone runners are very confident in their tires over a long run. He's going to stay right there, put some pressure on him, hope Brian makes a mistake and he can take advantage, or hope that his pit crew at that first stop can give him the advantage and get out in front of Brian.
Danny,
excuse me, go ahead, Gary.
I was just going to say, as you ride here with Zanardi and you watch this battle here shaping up, the pacing is critical in these early laps from a fuel standpoint. That's something we haven't touched on yet. It's a very narrow pit window here. And Chip Ganassi just radioed to his driver. He was perfect over the last couple of laps. Excuse me. So they've got that fuel mapping right on target because you just don't have the luxury of extra fuel at this situation. Lap 27 is going to be the key that everybody's looking for that first stop.
Up and down the pit lane, they're going to be watching the computers lap by lap to make sure they're going quickly enough, but not too quickly. It's a very tough track on fuel. We'll be back to Laguna Seca in a moment. This is at Portland and Laguna, the Super Speedway at Michigan, and the Short Oval at Nazareth, en route to the 1988 PPG Cup. Welcome back to Laguna Seca. You ride with Alex Zanardi. I'm Bob Varsha, along with Danny Sullivan, who hasn't aged a day since 1988. It's absolutely miraculous.
You're very kind, Bob.
Now, I know you clinched here at Laguna Seca. What are your memories of that championship?
Well, the championship was fantastic because it was one thing to win the Indianapolis 500, but to win the championship, racing all season long against the best drivers in the world, and to win it by winning a race as well. That was a tremendous feeling for me, and winning here at Laguna, which is one of my all-time favorite tracks. I couldn't have had a more perfect ending to that championship.
Did you win $1 million?
I did not win $1 million. It's amazing that it's gone up over the years, but it's been 9 years. It went from about $300,000 to $1 million, and I'd sure like to have that championship again.
That's what's at stake right now for the man in the red car running in second place. Alex Zanardi, shadowing race leader. Oh, Michael Andretti. Jan, what can you tell us?
Well, we heard him go by the front straightaway, and it sounded like he had some sort of engine misfire. The crew is discussing it as we speak. We'll try and get further details. It appears to be engine related.
Let's not do the coil spark box. We're going to look at the TPS sensor on the left side, like at Australia. See if something's unhooked or if we can replace it. Let's look at the TPS sensor. I think it's the ninth butterfly.
Okay, guys, the TPS sensor is the throttle position sensor. The ninth butterfly is actually the throttle. Okay, now they're saying it is the throttle position sensor. That's Lee White on the other end there, and they're going to try and change it, but boy, he's losing valuable time.
He is at the top of the corkscrew. Michael Andretti talking on his radio.
Fuel and tires first, and then we will service the TPS sensor.
Going to work on the sensor and do fuel and tires. This taking place on lap number 13. Back on point. Brian Herta leading Alex Zanardi by less than a car length. Now keep in mind, Alex Zanardi does not have to win this race. Any finish in the top 7 and he clinches the championship.
Picture clear.
Bob, there's nothing like winning your championship, though, with a win on that day. I know the feeling, it's fabulous, and he's going to keep the pressure on Brian Herta. I'm not sure whether he's playing cat and mouse with Brian or he's actually pushing as hard as he can.
Turn 11, at the far end of which Michael Andretti has made his pit.
Well, he hasn't quite made his pit. It's a little bit uphill here to Michael Andretti's pit, and now he's getting some assistance from the kart personnel on pit road, so even more valuable time has been lost for Andretti.
The Newman Haas crew goes to work on Michael Andretti's car. Meanwhile, Alex Zanardi remains right there with Brian Herta. Scott Pruitt remains 3rd. Jimmy Vasser 4th. Mark Blundell 5th. Mauricio Gugelmin in 6th. Gilles de Ferran is 7th. He needs to get up to 1st or 2nd and get some help in pushing Zanardi back.
Remember, Alex Zanardi's got a little history here with Brian Herta, not just at this track, but last week. So when he makes his move, if he does, he has to be 100% positive, and it has to be a clean move, because he can't take the chance that Brian would want to kind of pay him back a little bit for those couple of maneuvers he's put on him and take him out of the race, and thus make the championship go all the way to Fontana.
Gary Gerald.
Checking on the Brian Herta camp, some radio conversations, and then a conversation with one of the Goodyear tire engineers, Ray Little, the engineer for Brian, saying that they might be adjusting some tire pressures, trying to make the car more comfortable when they get to that first stop. Let's go back up and check on Michael again. Jan?
Well, it's 1 minute and 15 seconds and counting, and now you see the signs from the crew. They have decided that Michael Andretti's day is done. They were not able to replace the TPS, or they decided that that throttle position sensor was not the culprit. So Michael Andretti climbs out of the car. His day is done.
What a shame for Michael Andretti, who raced his father Mario for the last time here at Laguna Seca back in 1992 when they finished first and second. You ride with Alex Zanardi in second place. Sixth DNF did not finish for Michael Andretti this season, including 5 in the last 7 races. Steeply downhill here, sort of a bucket effect in this corner.
Cambered very heavily there. You see Alex Zanardi taking a look up the inside. He just keeps reminding Brian Herta, I'm back here. Do not make a mistake, because if you do, I'm going to take advantage.
More on the Michael Andretti story now with Jan Bikas.
Well, let's hear it from the source yourself. We heard you on the radio. We heard you say TPS, 9th butterfly. Did they ever find out what the problem was with the engine?
I don't know. I don't know what's wrong yet. I didn't ask him.
But you know it's terminal. How was the car prior to that?
Actually, not too bad. I think we definitely had a top 5 finisher. You know, Tracy was holding me up there, and once I would have got by him, I think I could have caught the next group. So we weren't looking too bad.
There's a lot of talk about Firestone versus Goodyear and the track conditions. Do you think it's going to suit Goodyear okay today?
My tires were holding up a lot better than I thought, so I was pretty happy with the way things were going.
Well, he was happy, of course, until those electronic gremlins got him.
All right, thank you, Jan. You saw Alex Zanardi get right in there, right on top of the mirror of Brian Herta, much less in it. There you see the gap as it has ebbed and flowed, but the picture tells you everything you need to know about just how hard Alex Zanardi is hounding Brian Herta. It's a Ford engine against a Honda engine. Goodyear tires on Herta's car, Firestone tires on Zanardi's.
And I think that's the real difference here. I really believe that Firestone, through the whole season, has had a little bit of an advantage over Goodyear. And as the run goes on, the Goodyears go away a little bit, and the Firestone seem to stay more consistent. It's not a lot, but in IndyCar racing, it only takes a little bit, as we see, for him to take a chance. Now, he stuck his nose in here at this corner last time, but Brian seems to have pulled away.
Slower traffic up ahead. Firestone tires have won 11 races of the 15 run before this weekend, including the last 9 in a row. They've also taken 10 pole positions, just 1 off of their total from last year. They deal with the car of Dennis Vitolo.
You see right there, Brian Herta did not give him any space down the inside. He's going to block that position.
Danny, I can't help but wonder as Zanardi continues to stalk the race leader, they're keeping him right on target with fuel, and they're getting good efficiency, they say. If they're getting this good efficiency and he can run this tough, it looks to me like he may have the more dominant car at this point.
Gary, I think you're absolutely right, but they want him to make sure if he makes a pass that it's very clean. Look, Brian's already protecting his line. Zanardi taking a very wide line there, saying, hey,
and up the inside he goes.
Is he going to make it? But he's on the outside for this corner. Locks up his right front. Brian came back. This is a great battle. Zanardi is all over him.
So Zanardi has made his opening thrust, and Brian Herta has parried it for the moment. And if you're trying to pick a winner, keep in mind, the winner at Laguna Seca has never started worse than 3rd. That means Brian Herta, Alex Zanardi, and Scott Pruitt.
I'll tell you one thing, I think Alex Zanardi's been patient for a long time, but he's thinking now's the time. I want to go. I've got good fuel efficiency, as Gary reported, and I've got enough car to make a move, and Brian is holding me up.
Well, as the saying goes, it's one thing to catch another man, something entirely different to pass him, and Chip is enjoying it as well.
And look who's caught him. Right there at the back is Scott Pruitt. And that tells us, obviously, Brian Herta is holding up this pack.
All three drivers in Reynard chassis, the Constructors champions for 1997. But a Honda engine in Zanardi's car, Ford's for Scott Pruitt right there, winner on the streets of Surfers Paradise, Australia earlier this year. And Brian Herta. And now Zanardi again looks up the inside.
But he's got to protect his backside as well, because Scott Pruitt's trying to take advantage of it. Remember one thing, there's a Goodyear at the front and Firestone's all over Brian Herta.
And Zanardi goes up the inside. Can Herta respond in turn 5? Yes, he does. Herta back into the lead, and they've got to move because here comes Scott Pruitt. And behind him is Jimmy Vasser, and behind him is Mark Blundell. So while the leaders have been dicing, the three cars behind them have caught up. Oh, Nelly, here we go. Vasser lights up his fronts. Here comes Mauricio Gugelmin in the red and white car at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. This is amazing. 6 cars, nose to tail at the front of this race on lap 18.
And they've just told Zanardi he can go up 1 on boost. That would indicate to me that if he finds the opening, he'll go for that little extra burst of horsepower in trying to wrestle the lead away.
Don't forget, Gary, Zanardi's not only trying to get the lead, but he's got to protect that second spot. He doesn't want to fall behind Scott Pruitt, who was all over him in that maneuver.
The top 6 cars are nose to tail, led by the man in black and white, Brian Herta. Running on Goodyear tires, all of the cars behind him.
Look at this lead group.
And look at that next 2 coming up. Leading that bunch is Gilles de Ferran, who needs to get in this fight like he needs oxygen.
And Bob, Gilles de Ferran's crew is watching this at the same time, and every time those 2 cars get side by side, they take their fist and they put it into their palm. It's almost as if they're trying to say to Herta, please punt off Zanardi. That's our hope for the championship.
Well, yeah, not only that, they're saying, please hold him up and let our driver catch onto the back of that group so he can get in this race.
That's right. Everybody ahead of Gilles de Ferran, with whom you rode a moment ago, is the enemy. He needs to get by everybody to get to first or second place.
Let's not forget, Gilles de Ferran is on Goodyear tires. He and Brian Herta in this group are the only 2 Goodyear runners.
And de Ferran is in a fight of his own with Michel Jourdain Jr. having a great race. Here come the top 6. Herta, Zanardi, Pruitt, Vasser, Blundell, Gugelmin, and not far back, less than 2 seconds, de Ferran and Jourdain. Great stuff.
And you could throw a blanket over that group, and one mistake, and you could lose 3-4 spots.
Through the infield, here comes Zanardi again. Nope, not that time. Oh my, we hate to leave this, but we have to. We will be right back as the action unfolds live at the Texaco Haviland 300 featured event of the Toyota Grand Prix of Monterey. Stay right there. Welcome back to Laguna Seca. Moments ago, beginning the 22nd lap of this race. This was the scene down on the infield section, out of turn 2. Alex Zanardi touched wheels with Brian Herta, who lost the race lead to Scott Pruitt. Zanardi rejoined behind his teammate Jimmy Vasser in 4th place. Picking up later that lap, climbing the hill through turn 6. Vasser passed Herta for second. Herta goes off the track, is passed by the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th place cars as Gilles de Ferran also went by. So, after a deep breath, you ride with Alex Zanardi in 3rd place. His teammate Jimmy Vasser ahead in 2nd. Scott Pruitt is the race leader. Mauricio Gugelmin is 4th, Mark Blundell 5th, Michel Jourdain 6th, Gilles de Ferran 7th. A low angle of the pass and contact in the infield.
And once again, Alex Zanardi doesn't no damage to his car. He drops 1 spot, but he's still in the hunt. And then later on, of course, Brian Herta dropped all the way to the back of that lead group.
Now Zanardi went off and on, gummed up his tires a little bit, not able to make any inroads on his teammate Jimmy Vasser up ahead. There's the race leader Scott Pruitt into the lead for the first time in a while.
And he is just leaving that group. He is just checking out. He's obviously got a very quick car.
And he's got those Firestone tires, which we're led to believe will work better on the long runs under hot conditions. Now let's take a look at all of that action from on board Alex Zanardi's car now. Well, Paul Tracy, meanwhile, is pitting from 11th place with 24 laps complete. Looks routine. Let's take another look at that in-car shot.
See, he's coming around here, but he's just running out of road. Brian's got nowhere to go. They get over there, and he said, I'm not giving you the outside. I am not closing the door on you. I'm opening the door on you and putting you right into the dirt.
Meanwhile, Pruitt takes full advantage, as does Jimmy Vasser. And Paul Tracy, after what looked like a routine stop, back out again. Danny, it brings up something that you've been telling me about all weekend. The fact that when Zanardi gets together with somebody, it's always hub to hub, not rubber to rubber, that gives you those catastrophic accidents.
Well, he got a little bit up in the air there, but he seemed to come away with it. He's running strong, no damage to the suspension, or so it appears. And once again, he's back out.
You ride with Bobby Rahal in 12th place. Christian Fittipaldi just ahead. Down for the corkscrew. Look at the fans alongside one of the greatest turns in motorsports. Oh, Tracy pulls off again. I guess it was not routine.
And when a driver pulls off like that and drives it over to a safe spot, one, very professional, but two, he knows his day is done.
So Penske Racing is down to one car for Al Unser Jr., currently in 16th place, still looking for their car owner's 100th victory in the series. There's the view from our Haviland Helicam. Race leader Scott Pruitt. His first lead since the US 500 at Michigan Speedway early this year. It is his 5th race lead of the season in 16 starts. And this is very much a home race for Scott Pruitt. He lives just to the north. Grew up just to the north, I should say, in the Sacramento area. He's going to be hosting a golf tournament to raise money for charity there this weekend. Andre Ribeiro runs in 10th. Brian Herta behind him. So Herta continues to lose ground. Ribeiro, one of the drivers who switched from the troublesome Lola chassis to the Reynard, and it made an instant difference in his performance. Brian Herta heads for the pits on lap 26. Gary Gerald is there.
Herta comes in and hits the mark perfectly. The fresh rubber, we believe that they've made an adjustment on tire pressures. They stay with the option tire. Everything routine, no wing changes, waiting for fuel, and now they're releasing 12.4 seconds.
Back to Scott Pruitt, the race leader. Now we are in the pit window, and it's not a wide one. We're going to see a lot of action in the pits now for tires and fuel. Driving for Pat Patrick Racing, the Brahma Sports team. Could be some changes coming for this team during the offseason. And now the leader pits at the end of lap 26. Once again, Gary Gerald is there.
Looking for the flawless service that he got on the street course at Surfers Paradise, Australia, back early in the season when he got his second career victory. Zanardi comes in on the same lap now. It's follow the leader into the pit. Pruitt at 10 seconds and counting. They're done. He goes 13.2. Here comes Zanardi now into our view as he flashes by.
We see Mark Blundell, Mauricio Gugelmin also in the pits. 60-mile-an-hour pit lane speed limit.
They keep their finger on that button to restrict the speed until they get past that last pit, then they let it rip.
Zanardi rejoins behind the white machine of Walter Salles, the Brazilian rookie. The new race leader, Jimmy Vasser, out front, coming up to lap Dennis Vitolo. Ooh, and a close one there.
I don't think Dennis saw him right there. He was not paying attention to that blue flag. The blue flag that you see, the marshal's waiting, that's a move over flag. That's a flag that's a courtesy flag to let you know that there's a faster car behind you.
Race leader Vasser is in and almost had a catastrophe there. We had a sharp turn to make to get to that pit, and Gary Gerald.
They'll go for a half turn on the front wing, we're told, as we come running in here. Jimmy Vasser, last year's champion. He wrapped it up here a year ago. No championship this year. He just won the victory and he's gone.
Interesting that the Ganassi team chose the first pits on pit lane. Meanwhile, Gilles de Ferran's crew right here chose the very last one.
Well, they choose their pit according to where they qualify in the last race. And if you're the quickest, you get the first choice.
Jan Bieke Vegas.
And Danny, of course, now he's got to take off and he's got to go uphill. They put one turn of front wing into the car. It's a little bit of a long stop. Oh, 14.8. I think they lost a little bit of time waiting for the fuel.
And the Walker Racing team has worked very hard on their fuel, on their pit stops. This is for the lead. Jimmy Vasser and Scott Pruitt.
But now, don't forget, Jimmy Vasser just came out of the pit, so his tires aren't up to temperature. Jimmy is going to go a little bit slower, but Scott Pruitt has got to try to get by him while his tires are hotter and his fuel load is just that little bit lighter. Look, he's trying to look, but he locked him up. That's a very tricky place to pass.
Let me correct myself. This is not for the lead. These guys are both just pitted, and you see what happens when a driver gets off on those marbles, the bits of rubber that build up from the tires. Look at the buildup on that hill. We'll take a quick break and return with more live coverage from Laguna Seca. Stay with us. Seca, for all the news on the day in the NFL, be sure to tune in NFL Primetime here on ESPN. Chris Berman and the gang will be waiting for you in our ESPN studios at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific, tonight, only on ESPN. After all of the cars have made at least one pit stop, the battle for the lead is now between Jimmy Vasser and Scott Pruitt. Alex Zanardi runs third, Mauricio Gugelmin fourth, Mark Blundell fifth. The Pac West teammates running nose to tail. There is Scott Pruitt in second place. There are Gugelmin and Blundell. The Pac West team, the first outfit in the PPG Kart World Series to gain wins for both of their drivers. 2 for Blundell and 1 for Gugelmin. Now we'll check the gaps at the line. Now the yellow arrows indicate the fastest, second, and third quickest cars, and those arrows will move as the various cars cross the start-finish line. There you see Andre Ribeiro just completed the quickest lap of the group, although he runs in 6th place. Good look there at Blundell, the Englishman, with wins earlier this year in the most amazing finish of the season. 3 drivers blanketed by hundredths of a second in drying conditions at Portland, Oregon. He then won again on the streets of Toronto, Canada. Up the hill they go once again to the highest point on the track, and plunging downhill through the corkscrew. Down to the pit lane and Jan Bikas.
Paul Tracy has climbed from his car. He's watching the action on the Jumbotron. What put you out? We saw you pull off the side of the track.
Oh, we don't know yet. You know, we were running good and was saving my tires, just kind of pacing myself along, and we caught the lead group up, and the car was fine, and then all of a sudden I picked up some kind of an engine misfire. It was real intermittent, and Greg and Andre got by me, and then I dove in the pits because it quit running coming down the hill, and then it picked up and did my pit stop, and we got up to the top of the hill leaving the pit, and the engine shut off again. So we really don't know what went wrong. It's just disappointing for the crew because we had a good car and we were starting to come around.
Well, the next one is an oval. I know you're happy about Fontana. It's an oval where the Penske's run well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. 5th failure to finish on the year for Paul Tracy. There's Mark Blundell. The leaders still running very close together. Working lap number 32 of 83 scheduled. You're watching live from high above Laguna Seca Raceway. We'll be back with more of the Texaco 300. Here at Laguna Seca, there you see Andre Ribeiro going out the bottom of your screen. Here comes Gilles de Ferran, who needs to finish first or second in this race and have points leader Alex Zanardi finish 8th or worse in order to keep the run for the PPG Cup alive. And of course, that $1 million bonus. Right now, Gilles de Ferran runs in 7th place as we climb on board with Christian Fittipaldi, currently shown in 13th.
Coming through a fast right-hander there, a little straightaway down to where you're going to join the old part of the circuit. A little tricky uphill. There's a bump in there. Now, this is a very fast but tricky corner under the bridge. It's got that dip in the middle and then rises up. Now you climb up a very steep hill. Look at this. You're looking at the sky. You go into your braking area, can't see anything. And then guess what's there? The corkscrew. Turn in. There's nothing there. Drop down. Drop down 160 feet through a tricky little left-hander here. Very fast. Down into, as you described it, Bob, this little bowl. Come down short acceleration, hard on the brakes. Look at that traffic in there. Slowest corner on the track, accelerating up to the fastest point on the track.
The bottom of your screen, our pole sitter and early race leader Brian Herta is now 9th, and Gary Gerald has more on him.
Well, we're checking with the team after that pit stop. They did make an adjustment on the tire pressures for the set that he now has on. There were no other changes on the stop. They also had a chance to look over the suspension while he was in quickly. They didn't think that there was any damage, anything tweaked or bent from that contact that cost him the opportunity to stay up front. They've asked him about the balance of the race car. Thus far, no response.
All right, thank you, Gary. Right behind Brian Herta, Michel Jourdain Jr. having a great run. He is in 10th place and pushing Herta hard. Jan Bikas.
Well, keep in mind, he went into the pits in 6th place, but unfortunately, he went out in 14th place. Dale Coyne, the team owner, told me that they had a miscue during the pit stop. They let him down off the air jacks too early. That cocked the fuel hose. They had to roll him back, but he has been lightning fast on the racetrack. They just have to figure out how to get him in and out of the pits more quickly. Gary?
Well, one more update on Brian Herta now. He has just complained to the crew on the radio that he is lacking grip. He doesn't like the feel of the car that he's got right now. The engineer, Ray Lito, on the team telling him, you can do it. Pick it up if you can. Pick it up. They're trying to do a little cheerleading on this side of the wall.
Brian Herta this weekend in qualifying was the only man to lap the 2.24 miles of Laguna Seca Raceway in less than 68 seconds. He knows how to get around. If he doesn't like the car under him right now, he's got a problem.
Well, I've got to tell you, the reason for the viewers at home, they say, well, how can a guy sit on the pole, then drop back and say his car is no good? Oftentimes, your car works very well for 1 or 2, 3 laps, 4 laps on a qualifying run. But in race trim, when you fill it up with fuel and you got to do long runs in traffic and you're not out there by yourself, the car changes.
Got to look at NFL great Walter Payton joining his Hall of Fame partner Joe Montana, who of course is a co-owner of Target Chip Ganassi Racing. Walter Payton is a partner to Dale Coyne, who owns the car that Michel Jourdain Jr. is driving so well here today. Brian Herta leads Jourdain. They run 9th and 10th. And we'll be back with more from Laguna Seca live after this. Climbing the hill at Laguna Seca, headed towards the corkscrew. You ride with Raul Boisel, driving for Pat Patrick and the Brahma Sports team. Boisel shown in 17th position. Boisel, one of the drivers we hear may be on the move during the offseason to come. Still looking for his first career victory in the PPG Kart World Series. He is the most experienced driver not to have won a race. 168 starts. Well, let's say 167 starts without a win. He's in his 168 today, and this one is a long ways from being over. Started 15th, as you see, running almost 45 seconds behind the race leader, Jimmy Vasser. Here are the Pac West teammates. Mauricio Gugelmin in red and white, Mark Blundell in blue and orange. Running 4th, Gugelmin, and 5th, Blundell. 2 proven winners and 2 of the 3 first-time winners we've seen in the PPG Kart World Series this year. Greg Moore is the other, the youngest first-time winner in series history on the Milwaukee Mile. Through turn 4, scene of many spins this weekend during practice and qualifying. Now the uphill F5. Both drivers with new 2-year contracts with the Pac West team. They'll be around through the 1998 season with car owner Bruce McCall.
And Bob, I just had a chance to talk with the team. They said they're running both their cars right now conservatively. They are trying to save fuel and tires. Remember, they have won their races in the past on fuel strategy. They obviously feel as though the second window, since we have not had a full course caution, is going to be a hard one to make. So they're saving fuel, and of course, they've done it before. It's put them in victory lane.
And Jan, you know, that's interesting from the standpoint of Scott Pruitt, who runs in second place, because Pruitt notoriously is tough on the throttle and tough on fuel. And they're already talking about the possibility of having to pit around lap 50 to 52, which would leave him 30 laps, 31 laps short. I don't know if you can get that much under green flag conditions on this circuit. So it could be a tough day for Pruitt just from a fuel standpoint.
There is Scott Pruitt running second to race leader Jimmy Vasser. There is Vasser, the red car at the beginning of the queue.
And let me tell you, they're showing a gap right there of 2.8 seconds on the monitor. Jimmy Vasser does not have a 2.8 second lead on Scott Pruitt anymore, and I think that probably came because of traffic.
There's Alex Zanardi running a very close third. If you're a guy like Gilles de Ferran and you're hoping that Alex Zanardi is going to drop out of this race, you're betting against some pretty long odds. Zanardi has completed all but 79 laps on the season, and 76 of the ones he did not complete came at Detroit, where he was bumped out of the race at the very first turn in a collision with Dario Franchitti. And the Target Ganassi crew is very good at finishing races. Just ask Jimmy Vasser. He went to the championship last year and was the only man to finish every race. Zanardi with a quick look in his mirrors when he's on the short uphill straight to the start-finish line, and over turn one and plunging downhill again. Scott Pruitt in second place, just ahead of him.
And following up on Gary's report of Scott Pruitt, it looks like he's maybe had to back off just a little bit from Jimmy Vasser. They may have told him to back that fuel mixture down a little bit to conserve some fuel, or even possibly short shift. Short shift meaning they don't take it all the way to the maximum RPM, and that helps save the fuel by just coming off about 1,000 RPM.
I imagine the idea of a yellow flag is entering the minds of some of the folks in pit lane, but this race has run caution-free 5 times. Yellows are rare here. We'll be back with more from Monterey. Take a Raceway, a look at the telemetry monitoring the performance of Andre Ribeiro. Off the turn, acceleration goes to 100%. It comes off slightly as the speed climbs to over 180 miles an hour. And now hard on the brakes for turn 2, the Andretti hairpin. It's like P.J. Jones going wheel to wheel with Andre Ribeiro through the hairpin. Gary Gerald has more on Andre Ribeiro.
We were checking with that crew on their changes they made on that first pit stop. They also adjusted tire pressures, had no other change according to Dan Halliday, and that team, they liked the way the car is working, and certainly they were efficient in their service because he gained 4 positions, and it was all because of a very quick pit stop.
All right, thanks, Gary. There you see Ribeiro's progress through the field. Meanwhile, in the pit lane, Richie Hearn is done for the day. Jan Bikas is with him.
Yes, he ran as high as 13th according to the crew. It's good news and bad news for you. Obviously, the bad news, you're out of the race, but I guess good news, you finally put the Lola out of its misery. You'll have a Swift in the next race.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of a sad ending to a tough year for this car, and we actually weren't running too bad. I was really able to run with those guys. I picked the harder compound tires to qualify with, so I think I was much more consistent during the run, but we're looking forward to the next race with the Swift at Fontana, and hopefully we can have a really good finish there.
Were even the harder tires going off for you?
I never had a problem. I was running just as good at the end of the run as I was at the beginning. All weekend long I've been like that, so it worked out for me, and it's just unfortunate I didn't get to finish the race.
All right, we look forward to seeing you in the Swift. Thanks.
Thank you.
10th DNF of the year for Richie Hearn. He and car owner John Della Penna certainly looking forward to getting that Swift for the next race on the California Speedway at Fontana. Gary Gerald.
Bob, it's interesting about that situation with that Swift chassis because the car that he's going to get from Newman Haas has still got some duty to do. A test up in Portland this next week, and then it'll be tested at Fontana before it's turned over along with 3 crew members to John Della Penna and Richie Hearn. I'm sure John and Richie got their fingers crossed that nothing goes wrong during the test.
Count on it.
Well, they've got their fingers crossed, but I got to tell you, they'll be very happy because that car will be well sorted when they've got it, so they shouldn't have to do a lot of work. And Michael Andretti told me he was very happy with the Swift. He ran just shy of 230 miles an hour in very hot temperatures with old tires, so he's happy.
Speaking of Swifts, you're on board one in the hands of Christian Fittipaldi. Currently shown, as you see, in 12th place. Chasing Bobby Rahal in the blue and white car, turning on to the start-finish straightaway. Bobby also carrying a camera, this one down on the nose, and Denny probably gives you a better driver perspective than the one mounted up on the roll hoop.
That's right. This is a little closer to the spot. Well, he just got past there at Christian, but he passed him right back. Christian got in a little deep, ran late in the corner, and Bobby dove right back underneath him. We saw, of course, Alex Zanardi and Brian Herta, Bobby's teammate, doing this a little bit earlier, and it's a good place to pass. It's one of the prime spots to pass, but you've got to get it done early.
Bobby Rahal has 11th place. Christian Fittipaldi wants it. Look at Bobby Rahal's record here. 4 consecutive victories in 15 starts.
Now this gives you a better shot of what it's like. He's climbing the hill. Now look, he's just looking at the sky. Now look at this blind shot into the braking area. Where did I brake? Okay, now turn off. I can't see anything. Boom, down into the corkscrew. What a great shot. You can't explain that, but it's such a sensational feeling from a driver when it just, the earth just seems to fall away underneath your car. The front end goes light, and you stand on the gas.
Through the slow turn 11. Now here's another look at that passing sequence. Here comes Fittipaldi down the inside of Rahal in the Andretti hairpin.
So he goes in there, and then he locks up that left front. He just gets out there in the gray just a little bit. He's got to get the car under control. It's very slippery out there, a lot of marbles. Bobby just does a perfect retake and passes him right back on the inside.
Boy, Rahal committed to the inside early, too. He was hoping that Fittipaldi would have trouble getting that car slowed down. Rocketing around the infield here at Laguna Seca. Headed for turn 5, slightly banked. Traffic up ahead. There could be more positions to be gained by Bobby Rahal shortly. Stay with us. Sweetest of Bobby Rahal's 3 PPG Kart World Series championships. With 4 victories on the season, the title was his first as a car owner, an honor he shared with Carl Hogan on one of the greatest days of Bobby Rahal's professional life. Second half here at the Toyota Grand Prix of Monterey, featuring the Texaco Haviland 300. Bob Barsha, Danny Sullivan with you. Gary Gerald and Jan Beekes patrolling the pit lane. Jimmy Vasser is the race leader. Scott Pruitt second. Alex Zanardi, the leader for the PPG Cup, and $1 million bonus, runs right where he needs to be in third. Mauricio Gugelmin is fourth. Mark Blundell fifth. Andre Rivero sixth. Then Gilles de Ferran, Greg Moore, Brian Herta, our pole sitter and early race leader. Michel Jourdain Jr. runs 10th. Bobby Rahal 11th. Christian Fittipaldi 12th. Then Walter Salas, Dario Franchitti, Al Unser Jr., Raul Boesel, and Roberto Moreno.
Bob, I think what's happening right at this stage of the race is everybody's trying to pace themselves to get to that next pit stop, and they've got to stretch it out as far as they can so they can get to about 56, 57 laps. The further they go, the more fuel they're going to have in that last run to the flag so that they can run it as strong as they possibly can.
Dan Gurney's All-American Racers team, there is P.J. Jones. The Toyotas have been coming on, although considering where they started from this year, they did have a long way to go. They did not score in the first 7 races of the year, but they have scored in 7 of the 8 races since. A view from our Haviland Helicam. That is Scott Pruitt in the bright orange car to the left of your screen. Flashing past the pit lane in a row of luxury boxes that have been added recently here at Laguna Seca. One of the many improvements to the track this year. We're on the grounds of the Fort Ord Military Reservation, which has been decommissioned for a couple of years now, being used for public housing. 354 units available, 1,500 applications. Not a bad place to live with the ocean just across the highway. And of course, this racetrack in the hills behind. First, second, third, and fourth running very close together. Jimmy Vasser, Pruitt, Zanardi, Mo Gugelmin, and Mark Blundell.
And Bob, it's interesting, you were talking with Danny a moment ago about what lap they select, what lap will they have to pit. Here's the way it looks right now. We think it could be Pruitt at 54 laps, Vasser 1 lap later, and possibly Zanardi 2 laps after that. keep in mind that any one of those laps could end up making a huge difference in terms of fuel availability when you get to the 83rd and final lap of the afternoon.
All right, thank you, Gary. Those are coming up in just a second. Remember, we had a lot of position changes on the last round of pit stops. We're going to see some more. Stand by for more live from the Texaco 300. Live at Laguna Seca in the Andretti hairpin. Outside of it, to be precise, Dario Franchitti has gone off, working lap number 53. Pit stops coming up.
And the quick word with Carl Hogan, Bob, was that Franchitti was reporting brake problems. Don't know if that was the ultimate factor or not.
Well, right here.
There he is locking up the tires. You saw the kart safety team looking at his left front tire at what appeared to be a severe flat spot. Franchitti has the opportunity to make up valuable ground in the Jim Truman Rookie of the Year standings. It may not happen. Let's see if he can get restarted and get it around. No yellow flag thus far. This is where Franchitti is, just outside this corner. There you see the truck. Juan Fangio on the left, motioning the race leaders by. Pruitt second, Zanardi third, Gugelmin fourth, Blundell fifth, all in your picture. There is Franchitti back on the racetrack, going very slowly and losing lots of ground. We expect Scott Pruitt in this next time by.
And these drivers don't want to get very far offline. You saw those marbles out there on the edge. You don't want to get too much buildup on the tire. You lose a lot of grip that way. They're trying to stay as online as they can.
To the hairpin and down. Zanardi currently running third. Now keep in mind, seventh or better clinches the PPG Cup for him. Right now, Gilles de Ferran, who needs a first or second, and he needs Zanardi eighth or worse. De Ferran runs in seventh, and three of our top four cars head for the pits. Mark Blundell will assume the race lead.
Now it comes down to the teams. This is where these guys like to shine, and this is where the driver likes to gain an advantage on another driver because his team got a quicker stop.
Watching the Pruitt crew, Andre Rivero flashes in before him. Other cars go by, making their stop in sequence. Got to get all the fuel. There goes Zanardi. Zanardi beats Pruitt out. And not a very fast stop for this crew, just a fraction under 15 seconds.
But Gary, a very fast stop for Gugelmin. He is back underway, 13.9 seconds for him. They got all the fuel in. We're going to look for Blundell here on the next lap.
Zanardi and Gugelmin got out ahead of Scott Pruitt. Excuse me, Jimmy Vasser did not pit that time by, so Vasser remains the race leader. Mark Blundell moves up to second with pit stops for the three cars you're looking at right now.
And let's not forget, Vasser went a lap longer last time, so that should give him a lap more. And that helps him toward the end, because if he comes out in the lead, he's going to have more fuel on board and be able to run that car a little bit stronger.
Alex Zanardi back on the track in fifth. Here's Jimmy Vasser, the race leader.
And we'll look for the routine tires and fuel, but we also will watch for a half turn on the front wing. There it is on the right front side. There was a right-hand twist. Revs are up. Fuel's not in. Waiting, still waiting, now rolling.
Well, Gary, they wanted to make sure they got every ounce of fuel that they possibly could.
Jimmy Vasser goes by. Mark Blundell is still in his pit.
Yes, but he did it in 13.14 seconds, so it was a fast stop for Blundell, but it may not have worked out as far as track position.
And Jan, one other thing, Jimmy Vasser's gone out, but he's gone out behind two other slower cars that he's going to have to get his way past with cold tires.
Christian Fittipaldi pits from 8th place. His teammate Michael Andretti is out of the race. Dust from the brakes flies as they pull off the old tires, add the new. There's the fuel valve. Boy, a tip of the helmet to the guys who go over the wall in all of this activity to service the cars. Fittipaldi back out onto the racetrack. We are working lap number 56 of 83 schedule. Gilles de Ferran should be our race leader. We'll sort it out when we return. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball Game of the Week from Cleveland, where Frank Thomas and the White Sox will take on David Justice and the Indians, coming your way live tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific on ESPN. Here at Laguna Seca, you ride with Roberto Moreno in the Alumax-sponsored Bettenhausen Racing Mercedes-Benz Reynard. Moreno currently shown in 16th. Now, while we were away and all of the top cars had completed their pit stops, this was Alex Zanardi going down into the Andretti hairpin, locking him up and going straight on in his effort to get around Mark Blundell.
And once again, he comes away with it. He doesn't spin off there. He doesn't stall it. Great car control here. Gets out on the dirt. Hold on. Get through that little pit there. Stands on the gas and away he goes. Just a little off-track excursion. Nothing serious.
Now the view from Zanardi's on board. It was close.
Let me tell you, it was very close, because if Mark had continued that move over, like what happened with Brian Hurd up there, that could have well taken Zanardi out of the race and out of that championship.
Boy, racing luck is such a fickle thing. Alain Prost in Formula One was supposedly had it. Dan Gurney, for all that he accomplished, supposedly never could get great racing luck. In fact, one of his drivers, Juan Fangio II, is going to be hit with a violation for running over an air hose in the pits. Our running order right now, Jimmy Vasser, who did get out with the race lead over Mark Blundell. Mauricio Gugelmin now third. Scott Pruitt fourth. Alex Zanardi has fallen back to fifth with that off-course excursion. Andre Ribeiro runs sixth. Gilles de Ferran in seventh. Greg Moore eighth. Christian Fittipaldi ninth. Walter Salas, the Brazilian rookie, in 10th. Then Michel Jourdain Jr., Brian Herta 12th. Alonso Jr. up to 13th. Raul Boesel, Bobby Rahal, Roberto Moreno, and Adrian Fernandez. And as I mentioned, everyone has made their second pit stop.
So now it's just to managing your fuel, racing as hard as you can with what you have on board. Jimmy Vasser, of course, stopped one lap later than everybody else. Maybe he's got a little bit in hand.
Our numbers at the line. Quickest car on that last lap was Mauricio Gugelmin. Now Andre Ribeiro drops in the quickest lap of the front runners. Gugelmin second, Jimmy Vasser third.
And right there with Fernandez just held up Jimmy Vasser a little bit. Closed down the second and third place cars. Look at this, Big Mo wanting to get through there as well. He's in that red, white, and blue car right there.
Trying to maintain contact. Boy, you really have to pick your places to pass here with all that rubber building up offline.
You do, but you have to force the issue a little bit, because if you find that ideal spot, you can drop 2-3 corners behind a slower car and lose 2 or 3 seconds, and that's almost impossible to get back with the pace that these guys are running.
And Danny, remember that the 2-pack West car stopped 1 lap difference between the two, so that would mean that Blundell should have a little more fuel to use right now than Gugelmin.
That's right, Jan. I think Blundell and Vasser stopped on the same lap, so they should have the same amount on board, although Vasser has a Honda engine and Blundell has a Mercedes. And what we've seen over the course of the season is the Mercedes gets a little bit better fuel economy, although Honda says they've stepped that up and improved in that area.
And Danny, they're telling Zanardi right now that he's got to improve on his fuel mileage if he wants to make it. So that enters into this scenario.
And Gary, from a driver's point of view, those are some of the worst words you can hear, is that you've got to manage your fuel, because you just want to go, particularly having made that mistake and gone off and lost the ground. You want to turn the wick up and catch everybody.
And you're looking at the stars of the fuel mileage show earlier this year. Remember Detroit, when Mauricio Gugelmin and that man, Mark Blundell, tried to run their fuel to the last lap of the race? Began the last lap in first and second on the back stretch. With just a couple of corners remaining, Mauricio Gugelmin, the race leader, ran out of fuel. His teammate Mark Blundell took over, and with 1 corner to go, he ran out of fuel. And Greg Moore came through for his second victory of the season. It was an amazing day on Belle Isle. There's a look at the race leader, Jimmy Vasser, through turn 1, headed for 2. Blundell in second, Gugelmin in third. Scott Pruitt runs fourth. We'll be back in just a moment. One of the greatest half seasons in PPG Kart World Series history, winning 4 of the first 6 races and posting a points lead that no one could match en route to the title right here at Laguna Seca Raceway. ESPN NFL Prime Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, getting you set for the Monday night game. And the Monday night game this week, Marcus Allen makes his return to the Oakland Coliseum for the last time. The Chiefs and the Raiders coming your way on ABC's Monday Night Football, live at 9 Eastern. Here at Laguna Seca Raceway, Jimmy Vasser leads Mark Blundell by just a few car lengths. Vasser has really come alive at the end of this PPG Kart World Series season. Last weekend in Vancouver, he basically doubled his seasonal total for laps led. Running very strongly. His last win was 25 races and 16 months ago at the US 500 on Memorial Day weekend. But right now he is out front with a 2-time race winner this season behind him in Mark Blundell.
Bob, don't forget that we have a fuel issue here. We have heard that the Target team is having to pull back on fuel with Zanardi. We assume that's the same part with Vasser. Just talked to John Anderson, who of course makes the call for Blundell. He says because they pitted a lap later than Gugelman, that's why they're able to pull away. They cannot use all their fuel. They're still trying to save, but they think it'll help him put moves, or at least put pressure on Vasser.
The more you can conserve at this stage, the more strongly you're going to be able to run at the end of this race. And with as close as they're running, as bunched up as they are, you want to be awful strong at the end. You don't want to have to start backing off toward the end of that run. And you know Jimmy Vasser wants a win here. We all talk about home tracks. Of course, he grew up just up the road in San Francisco or the Bay Area.
Alex Zanardi, something interesting is happening here. Zanardi is running in 5th. The car to the right of your screen with the bright lime green nose is Andre Ribeiro. Ribeiro is closing on Zanardi. If he passes him, Zanardi will be in 6th place. Now Gilles de Ferran runs 7th. De Ferran, the only man with a shot at Zanardi for the PPG Cup and that $1 million bonus. Greg Moore going slowly. He's in the pit entrance.
Saw him point to the left just there. He said he knew his day was run. Pull it down in there.
Now this is in the corkscrew moments ago. Whoops.
Little turbo fire there.
That'd be natural if there were turbochargers on these cars, but there aren't. Excuse me. Of course there are. I'm looking at the flame coming out of that thing. Why don't you just take over here, Danny?
No, I think you were thinking too much about those F1 days, you know. They banned those a while ago, but...
Well, they're little turbochargers, let me put it that way.
And they don't drive like turbocharged cars. There's very little lag in these. And they shift, of course. Now think about this. They're shifting in here about 28 to 30 times a lap, but they have a sequential gearbox. They never lift their foot off that throttle when they're upshifting. They just pull it back. But one little mistake in that, of course, they miss a shift, and they can drop quite a few spots when it's this close and it's this competitive.
Word is the engines in the PPG Kart World Series in the near future may be downsized in displacement and upped significantly in turbocharger boost pressure. Perhaps 1.8 liters and as much as 55 inches of boost. Jimmy Vasser flashes down the corkscrew. Greg Moore is out of the car. Gary is there.
Greg, what was the problem?
We blew a motor just going up into the corkscrew. Same thing that happened to us in qualifying yesterday. It's unfortunate, you know, we were running real strong there. And who knows what would have happened? We were saving fuel. We don't have to make a third stop, but our race is over. We'll go to Fontana and try and win that one.
How were the conditions from a driver's standpoint today at Laguna Seca?
I think that the conditions are actually pretty good. You know, there's offline, they're starting to get a lot of rubber from all the marbles and stuff, but other than that, the track's pretty good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
7th DNF of the season for Greg Moore. There is Mark Blundell looking for his 3rd win of the season. Jimmy Vasser looking for his 1st. What a relief it would be for Jimmy Vasser to win, particularly here at Laguna Seca, where he clinched his championship last year.
Well, he's not getting any relief right now because Mark Blundell is right behind him. He sees that bright orange nose in his car, He knows he's there. He knows he cannot make a mistake, and he's trying to run a pace and conserve fuel, so he'll have a little bit left at the end.
The way things stand right now, Alex Zanardi is in position to easily clinch the PPG Cup and $1 million with 17 laps to go as you watch Jimmy Vasser and Mark Blundell getting closer.
Bob, look in front of them. I'm sorry, Jan, look in front. All that traffic right there. This is a very critical time for Jimmy Vasser because you've got to be able to knife through that traffic and try to take advantage of it and put a little bit of distance between yourself and Mark Blundell.
Yeah, sorry about that, Danny. I was going to say that not only is there the Drivers' Championship, remember, there's the engine manufacturers as well. If they finish as they're running right now, Mercedes would clinch the championship. So there's a lot on the line down here, and representatives from both Honda and Mercedes anxious to see what's going to happen here this afternoon.
Well, they're anxious, but I can tell you the drivers aren't thinking about the engine championship. They're powered by those things. They love them. They run them all season long, but what they're worried about right now is the best possible finish for themselves.
Parker Johnstone is the first car that Vasser and Blundell will overtake, and they do it in the corkscrew. Johnstone off and on the track earlier in this race. Parker runs in 18th place. Dennis Vitolo ahead of Johnstone. Both of them get out of the way, or yes, they do, for the first two cars in line, Vasser and Blundell. We'll take a break and return with more live from the Toyota Grand Prix of Monterey featuring the Texaco Haviland 300. Stay right there. Back at Laguna Seca, let's update today's stories in the Texaco 300. Our front row battle, Brian Herta started from pole, led early on, but then the car turned away from his liking. He currently runs 11th. Alex Zanardi, who started outside the front row, 5th and in position to clinch the PPG Cup. The Goodyear Firestone battle, 7 Firestone shot cars in the top 10. And something interesting is happening here. A year ago, that man, Jimmy Vasser, clinched the championship here at Laguna Seca, a race won by his teammate Alex Zanardi. They could reverse roles today. Zanardi clinching in a race won by his teammate Jimmy Vasser, who will pick up a championship bonus point for leading the most laps in the race today. Here comes Zanardi and Andre Ribeiro right there in that yellow-nosed Reynard, going by Parker Johnstone, moving up to challenge Zanardi for 5th place. Looking back from Zanardi's car to Ribeiro. As they pick up speed, the gap in time remains basically the same, even though Ribeiro's car gets further away in the distance. Under braking, they close up again. Uphill, turn 6. Hear how much they have to work the throttle and why this track is so hard on fuel mileage.
That actually sounds like it's not revving very high, but from inside the cockpit in the driver's ear, don't forget that thing's turning almost 14,000 RPM. And it's a lot louder than what you're hearing on this audio right now.
Turn 11 onto the start-finish straightaway. Gap remains about the same. Now Ribeiro's teammate has climbed from his car. Here's Gary.
Adrian Fernandez, what was the problem?
Well, from the beginning of the race, I had a long pedal on the brakes. So really, I had to pump it out every time I used to go to a corner. So basically, I run out of brakes. The brake was completely gone. The pedal was really long, and it was too dangerous out there. I mean, at one point, I went into the corkscrew, and I couldn't stop. And you know, it was way too dangerous to stay out there, and the brakes were completely gone.
One race yet to go in this season. Do you know what your plans are for 1998 at this point?
Well, I can tell you I'm looking forward to the last race at the moment and towards next year. It's been a hard year, but, you know, we keep pushing and looking into the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know one thing Mr. Fernandez is looking forward to. He will take a bride when the season is over. Marry his girlfriend Tanya in a globe-girdling wedding party. We wish them a lot of happiness. Rubber buildup. Downhill from 9 toward turn 10.
Looks like that gap has narrowed down a little bit there to Alex Zanardi. fact, that's about as close as he'd probably like to see Andre Ribeiro.
This is for 5th place. 72 laps lead. Here comes Ribeiro down the inside in the hairpin.
And you notice how he dove in there and then he almost stopped so that Zanardi couldn't dive back up the inside of him. He just parked it down there on the inside of the corner. Very good maneuver.
Christian Fittipaldi is stopped. Looks like he's up at the top of the hill. Yes, in turn 6, climbing the hill to the corkscrew. Corner workers spraying down the left rear of the car. Now this could conceivably bring out a flag. He's actually in the corkscrew.
That's the top of the corkscrew. Now you see Christian kind of limp away there. That's still from his brake. That's nothing from hitting the wall. That's just from the brake of his leg that he had earlier in Australia.
Is he far enough offline, do you think?
Yeah, that's a very safe spot right there. He pulled it off in a good spot. Somebody'd have to do something pretty tricky to get all the way over to that.
And Danny, the radio communication from Christian was that something collapsed.
Okay, we're seeing him coming in. See the right front. The right front there just locked up completely. Hear that engine's just chugging, still in gear. He's just slid it in there, pulled off in a good spot. See that mark around the tire? That's shot. I couldn't tell what broke on the car.
Michel Jourdain has also stopped.
Yes, Michel Jourdain has been having some problems. He was on pit road and they changed all the spark plugs and the electronics on the car. Obviously, they were not able to find the problem for Jourdain.
Well, at least he picked a shady place to stop. It is warm out here today. Now back to the top of the corkscrew. Christian Fittipaldi coming in with everything locked up. No obvious sign of anything broken.
You see on the left side right there, there was something going down on the left-hand side. As we back it up there, he had smoke coming off of that tire, and it was stopped, and the other one's still going. See right down in that little area right there. It's got all that smoke, could be just from the track. But it's odd that that tire has stopped and the right front. There's something amuck there.
Up front, Jimmy Vasser working the traffic. Mark Blundell gets caught behind slower cars. Less than 10 laps remaining in round 16 of the PPG Kart World Series. Stay with us.
I want a side-by-side.
Back at Laguna Seca, Scott Pruitt runs in 4th place. Andre Ribeiro, having gotten around PPG Cup leader Alex Zanardi, is looking to move up from 5th place. Zanardi runs in 6th, still in position to clinch the cup with 8 laps remaining in the Texaco 300.
Scott Pruitt, of course, there in the bright orange and yellow car, second in your screen. He had a big lockup going there into the corkscrew. That won't help him in these last laps, flat spotting the tires. And Andre Ribeiro is all over that group. He's in the blue with the bright yellow nose there, blue and red car.
Ahead of Pruitt is Mauricio Gugelmin in 3rd. And there is Zanardi to the right of your screen in red. 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, running nose to tail.
What happens at this stage, too, the driver who's conserved the most fuel toward the end of that race, and they figure out, okay, this is when you can go, they'll turn his boost back up. Not his boost, but his actual fuel mixture. They'll turn it back up and let him loose.
Danny, that's exactly the scenario for Jimmy Vasser. We were checking earlier with Tom Anderson about it. He says, yeah, we're having to play it a little bit conservative, but there's absolutely no doubt we're good to the finish of the race. They're just pacing themselves. Thus far, it's right on target. They're looking very, very strong to get that first win in, what, 16 months for Vasser.
And, Gary, it's the same for Mark Blundell. John Anderson is the one who makes the calls for him. They have given him the okay to use the button in case he needs to close the gap or to pass. Of course, that richens the fuel. That means he's doing very well on fuel economy.
And Jan, of course, what that also means is he uses more fuel up when he does that. So he doesn't want to use that button unless he absolutely has to, because he wants to save it for those critical times when he absolutely needs to use that extra fuel.
Took a ride with Alex Zanardi in 6th place, walking the high wire, looking for the PPG Cup as Bobby Rahal, who's been having problems on the track, pulls in. His day may be done. Stay with us. Welcome back to Laguna Seca Raceway and the Texaco 300. Alex Zanardi has gotten back around Andre Ribeiro, but that puts him into 4th place after Scott Pruitt found himself off the racetrack down in turn 2, the Andretti hairpin. We have 4 laps remaining. Now, moments ago, this was Ribeiro and Pruitt.
And you see some body work that was over in that area. These two guys must have touched in an out-braking maneuver by Andre Ribeiro. They must have touched, spun Scott off, and then Zanardi, 2 corners later, dives underneath Ribeiro.
No right front end plate on the front wing of Andre Ribeiro's car, so he must have made contact with Scott Pruitt. Pruitt out of 4th place. Alex Zanardi into it. Up front, Jimmy Vasser with Mark Blundell just behind. Back in 1994, Nigel Mansell was the last PPG Kart World Series champion not to win a race the year after taking.
And you see Mark Blundell, he ran out there wide. There was a slower car with Scott Pruitt, and he had to get out on the marbles. That gave Jimmy just a little bit of an advantage. What happens at this stage is it's all in traffic. Depending on how you get through traffic, they got Allenser Jr., they just were trying to get by. Jimmy's now right behind Boisel. He's going to have to get by him. See the gap right there? The car just going out of your screen.
Roberto Moreno and Al Unser Jr. right there on your screen are battling over a position. Moreno moves into 10th around Unser Jr. Back to my point about Jimmy Vasser trying not to become the first PPG Kart World Series champion since Nigel Mansell to go winless in the season of his title defense. Scott Pruitt has reached the pits, and his race is over as well. Bobby Rahal pulled in a few moments ago with terminal problems on his car.
And they were pointing to the left rear area of Scott Pruitt, where he obviously made some contact with Andre Ribeiro, because we saw those pieces of Andre Ribeiro's right front fly off. Now, right behind this in-car camera of Raul is our leader.
Boisel up into the top 10 right now. He runs in 9th place. Now back on the point. Jimmy Vasser on the left. Mark Blundell on the right.
See right there is Boisel right in front of him. Jimmy getting sideways, coming out of the corner. He's obviously got plenty of fuel because he's standing on the gas there.
2 laps remaining. 2 laps to a much-needed victory for the reigning PPG Kart World Series champion Jimmy Vasser. As you look from the back of his car, 2 laps until we will no longer call him that as things currently stand, because Alex Zanardi, his teammate and the points leader coming in, runs in 4th position, more than enough to clinch the PPG Cup. Gilles de Ferran, the only man with a shot at him, runs 6th.
Now, how hard do you think Jimmy's heart's beating right now? I mean, he's here first, could be his first win of the season, will clinch the championship for the team. He's back on track.
And here comes Blundell. This race is not over yet. The Englishman is right there looking for another win for the Pac West team.
Jimmy's going to have to turn it up on this last lap because Blundell is hungry. Taking a look down the inside, letting Jimmy know he was there. Jimmy needs to get off the corner here very well.
White flag from Jim Swental for Jimmy Vasser, and just behind him for Mark Blundell. 2.24 miles to go.
And traffic right in front of him. The traffic and one Boisel right in front of him, but another slower car. This could bunch him up.
Looking back from Raul Boisel's car, there's Charlie Neerberg in the yellow machine, and Mauricio Gugelmin is off from 3rd. Gugelmin hard into the tires. The Target Ganassi crew, knowing there is less than a lap to go, to a double victory. 1 for Jimmy Vasser and 1 for Alex Zanardi.
We're coming up to that famous spot. Is Mark Blundell going to try the same maneuver? Vasser protects the inside. Mark's got one more good spot to have a go at him.
Hard on the gas. Mark Blundell can clinch the engine builder's title for Mercedes with this runner-up finish, but these guys want the checkers.
Right there. Jimmy's going to protect it. He's got it. Just come off there nice and clean. Accelerate up. This is Jimmy's.
16 months after his last victory, Jimmy Vasser picks up his 5th career win and a fitting conclusion to his championship defending season, because this man, his teammate Alex Zanardi, comes through to clinch the PPG Cup and a $1 million bonus. And of course, the question for Zanardi fans is, where will the victory donut come and when? An up and down day for Alex Zanardi, who entered it under the cloud of his $25,000 fine and probation for rough driving a week ago. But despite one small carambolage with Bryan Herta, his rival, Zanardi has been clean. And for the first time since Penske Racing won back-to-back PPG Kart World Championships with Rick Mears and Al Unser Sr. in 1982 and 83, Target Chip Ganassi Racing has done it. Vasser in 96, Zanardi in 97. And there are the teammates. What a moment for Alex Zanardi, and what a moment for Jimmy Vasser as well.
Oh, they touched! Look at this! They were just so close to each other, they actually touched and spun him around. Alex spun off his own teammate. Now, do you think that that's going to be dangerous driving and the probation will be...
Do you think that's going to show up on somebody's highlight reel? Down the pit lane, Jan Beekes.
Well, let's find out what Chip Ganassi thinks. You just saw that. These guys rubbing wheels after the finish line, but congratulations. 2 victories for you today.
2 victories. I'll tell you what, that Jimmy, he did a hell of a job winning this thing today. I mean, it was a hell of a race out there, as you saw at the front. A lot of guys were giving Alex his day, and but it was his day, and ultimately.
I know you want to get to victory circle, but as an owner, what kind of feelings do you have sitting here watching this happen?
I've never been happier in my life.
Thank you, Chip. Have a good time in victory circle. You've got a lot to celebrate.
Thank you.
How many times you ever seen the winner of a race walking to the winner's circle from his car that's parked spun out on the track?
Well, I guess he's not going to walk. Max Pappas pulls up in the MCI Reynard to give the champion a lift to victory lane. Easy way to get there, Max. Nicely done. There is Alex Zanardi. We'll be back in just a moment. Today's back at Laguna Seca. The championship has been clinched. Jimmy Vasser wins the race. Alex Zanardi finishes 3rd and picks up the PPG Cup. He's standing by with Gary Gerald.
Surveying a championship banner, he's got the cold drink, and Alex Zanardi, the pressure, the talk of the probation, everything disappears now. You have just won a championship and $1 million.
Sounds pretty good.
Tell us about the donuts out there. And did you make contact with Jimmy Vasser?
No, I wasn't planning to make the donuts. I was just so happy for Jimmy because the boy's been through so many misfortunes, and it's about time that he's got some luck, that he has some luck, and he finally win a race.
Have you allowed yourself the luxury of thinking what this means to you and your career and how it could play out in the future, how important it can be?
Not yet, but
and here's Jimmy Vasser as well.
Done it yet, and now it is, and I'm gonna go happy tonight. I'm gonna go home and very happy.
He's gonna go happy tonight. How about you, Jimmy Vasser? It's been 16 months since you've experienced this feeling.
Well, it's great to get back in the winner's circle. You know, we've had our ups and downs this year. We've been in a position to win a couple races, but it's been tough pretty much. But I gotta hand it to my Firestone tires, my Honda engine, and my Target Chip Ganassi crew. They got me to the finishing line first. And how about this guy for the championship? If I got to give up the cup to anybody, this is the guy I want to give it up to.
You said a couple of races back that you were going back to working with your own setups rather than sharing information. Was that a key to making you more competitive these last couple of events and making you a winner today?
I choked. Absolutely. You know, it's
Go ahead and clear it out of there.
I sound like Danny Sullivan in his first telecast.
And that gets laughter in the booth and all around. You okay?
Not really. Cut to somebody else.
All right, Vasser is choked up. I don't know if it's the emotion of the moment or it's a gremlin in there, but gosh, they're happy. And why not, Bob?
Well, it all works for me. This was the scene as the 2 teammates came through turn 9, congratulating one another. Well, keep in mind, guys, we've got another race in 3 weeks. final results of the Toyota Grand Prix of Monterey, featuring the Texaco 300K, Vassar Blundell by a half second. Alex Zanardi, the championship clincher, in third. Andre Ribeiro, fourth. Gilles de Ferran, a hard-fought fifth place. Brian Herta, sixth from pole position. There you see 7th through 12th. Alonso Jr. comes home 11th after his teammate Paul Tracy dropped out earlier. This was Jimmy Vassar after he climbed out of his car and gave his crowd salute. Now let's get down to Jan Bikas.
Well, there's a lot of jubilation over in Victory Circle. Not so much here for Gilles de Ferran, but I think you knew that it was going to be a long shot coming into this race.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we knew it was going to be a long shot. Obviously, we were counting on the unexpected. The unexpected didn't happen. But on the other hand, we were really happy to lock in second place in the championship. You know, that just goes to prove the fantastic job that the team has done throughout the year. I'm sad in one way that I won't be able to take the title decider to Fontana, but happy in another way that we were able to lock in the second place in the championship.
Now, Fontana, you've run well on ovals. The Goodyears don't seem to have as much trouble. Looking forward to that race?
Very much so. I think, you know, we got one more chance to win a race this year, and we'll do the best we can.
All right, thank you very much, Gilles. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Well, we got a whole family of Blundells here. This is young Mark. This is Callum over here. And, of course, you know Mark Blundell. His wife joins them here. This business of finding yourself on the podium, got to be loving it.
I do love it, you know, and that was a good race for us. We've been strong all weekend, and the race ran well. The guys did fantastic pit stops. I mean, I take my hat off. That's where we crept up in the positions with the pit stops.
Did you think at any point you might have a shot of being able to track down Vassar before it was all said and done?
Well, you know, actually, we were on Jimmy a number of times, and when we needed to, we could pull the time out the bag and lap pretty quick, but we didn't really get a break with the back markers. I mean, you know, Jimmy got a break, we didn't, then I'd have to catch back up again. But that's the way it goes, you know, that's racing.
And a banner, of course, behind him indicates that Mercedes-Benz has won a manufacturer's championship, and a lot of people take pride in that.
Yeah, I'm very proud of that. Fantastic to be associated with Mercedes-Benz and also Firestone. And again, the Motorola car's on the podium, and that's fantastic.
And what a great season for Mark Blundell with a race to go. We'll see you down at Fontana in 3 weeks.
You sure will. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Gary. Congratulations to Mercedes and Mark Blundell on his runner-up finish. We do have one more race to run this year, a 500-miler on the wide open spaces of the California Speedway. It's the Kart World Series 500, Sunday, September 28th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. A look at the championship points with one race remaining. Alex Zanardi, untouchable in first. Gilles de Ferran, still with a lot to prove, holding on to that second place and a fat check at the season-ending banquet. Jimmy Vassar in third. Paul Tracy drops to fourth. Mauricio Gugelmin in fifth. Coming up next on ESPN, the PGA Tour Bell Canadian Open, so be sure to stand by for that. An amazing weekend all in all here on the Monterey Peninsula. Danny Sullivan, your final thoughts?
Well, I'm all choked up for Jimmy Vassar, but what a fabulous race he drove. He did a tremendous job. Chip Ganassi's team did fabulous. I thought they were great, and everybody else fell by the wayside, but it was a great weekend all in all.
No question about it. The weather cooperated, and of course Laguna Seca Raceway, one of the best places in the world to watch a race, has produced another great one. Jimmy Vassar, after colliding with his teammate on the cool-down lap, I guarantee you'll be seeing that highlight for a long time to come, maybe as long as last year's pass by Alex Zanardi. I'm Bob Varsha. Bob, no turbos, please, Varsha. For Danny Sullivan, Jan Bikas, and Gary Gerald, congratulations to Chip Ganassi, Joe Montana, and the Target Ganassi Racing Team on the race win and the championship. Alex Zanardi is the 1997 PPG Cup champion. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.